You win some, you lose some. Hey, Bills Mafia, long time no see. Just kidding. It's only preseason. But it's your Buffalo Bills fan, Scott McGregor here. Welcome to Bills Postgame. Welcome to Sports for Beginners. This is the show where I cover the Pittsburgh Penguins, Toronto Blue Jays, and take you on a journey through the world of sports. From the fan's perspective, here is your host, Scott McGregor. Let's have some fun. What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Scott McGregor, your Bills Mafia Bills fan here on Sports for Beginners. Welcome in to the first ever Bills postgame show on Sports for Beginners during the preseason. That's right, we're talking preseason. It is Bills postgame. Bills drop the preseason opener to the New York Giants. Your final score, as we bring up the sportsnet.ca scoreboard, as we bring up that scoreboard for you, the final score, Bills 25, Giants 34. Giants, right from the get-go, despite not a lot of the starters starting for the Giants and the Bills in this preseason game. One notable, our quarterback of the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen, not starting in this game. He was resting this game. Also notable that we did not see James Cook out there. Who we did see? Tre'Davious White back in the fold. And boy, did he look good, making some high pressure movements. But boy, the first half was not a good half for the Bills. I was gonna say Blue Jays, but I'll say the Bills. It was not a good first half. Speaking of the Blue Jays, though, in about 19 minutes and 50 seconds, under 50 seconds, and 19 minutes, we will be dropping on the ice and behind the benches the opener of the previous road trip series between the Blue Jays and the Colorado Rockies. Still a lot of action on the ice and behind the benches to bring out, especially from the previous hockey season. But we're talking football, so let's keep it going that way. Head coaches for the Buffalo Bills. You know him. Some of you love him, some of you hate him. It's Sean McDermott, the head coach of the Buffalo Bills. Owners are Kim and Terry Pagula, and this is the last season of the current Highmark Stadium that is soon to be called the old Highmark Stadium, as the the Bills will be moving to a new Highmark Stadium just across the street from the old Highmark Stadium after this season. Anywho, back to what we were talking about. Let's go to the Giants. What's their line like? Oh yeah, oh yeah. And our host Thomas McGregor just reminding us in a text that it was actually going to be now 19 minutes away from game one of the Rockies Blue Jays series dropping on the ice and behind the benches. But anyways, let's get back to it. Make that 18 minutes, and now about 17 minutes away, to be honest, from that drop. Anyways, let's keep it back to the show. Head coach is Brian Daboll of the New York Giants. They are owned by John Mara and Steve T. Steve, I wasn't going to take an idea to pronounce your last name just for the sake of messing it up, so I apologize if I just go with Steve T. But just to make sure I do that, barring any pronunciations, the home of the New York Giants, as well as, I guess, the New York Jets, is MetLife Stadium, established in 1925. The team was established. All right, so we know the quarterbacks, Josh Allen, and you'd like to think it would be Daniel Jones. You'd like to think it would be Daniel Jones against Josh Allen, but it's the preseason. So that could happen. It could happen. That could happen. It could happen. Anyways, our starting quarterbacks, rather our key top performers, were quarterback of the Bills, Mike White, against draft pick of the New York Giants and quarterback Jackson Dart. The Bills also using Mitchell Trubinsky to start, Giants using Russell Wilson to start their game as well, to start the game as well. Giants also using quarterbacks Jameis Winston and Tommy DeVito, and a couple of people to note that got in the scoring. We saw flashes of Frank Gore, Dawson Knox, Taron Johnson, Ty Johnson as well. And I mentioned, of course, off the top, I mentioned Tre'Davious White back in the fold. We will see if Tre'Davious does make the final team after the next two preseason games. We'll get to those momentarily. All right, before we take our first break of the show, I should say, which will lead us into our game breakdown coming up next, I want to remind you that our game stats will be provided when we share the screen. For our Sportsnet stats, I'll also keep an eye on the stats that were on the Score app. Download the app for yourself to follow your favorite team all season long. And of course, you could download the NFL app to follow your favorite football team all year long. We also may do a CFL check-in. We won't do that in the regular season, but we will be doing that for the preseason. CFL is actually in season as we speak, so we'll do the check-in for the CFL down the road as we go into the closing moments of the show. That is also where you will find the game balls of the game, victory speech during the regular season games if we have one, and of course, previewing the next week. So not a lot will be the same here on the preseason shows, but we will do the victory speech during regular season games should we have it at the time of recording. This ball game has just gone final, and once again, our final score as we take a break is 34-25, Giants over Bills. To Giants fans, I know it's the preseason, and I know for Bills Mafia it is the preseason, but happy Victory Sunday to you, Giants Nation. What a way to kick off the preseason. And might I add, that draft pick at quarterback, he's pretty good. I was really liking what I was seeing from him. It's Bills Postgame, preseason week 1. First half highlights, including scoring from quarter 1 to quarter 2, plus a look around a busy week 1, including the Hall of Fame week in the NFL preseason up next. Then, of course, we'll get to quarters 3 and 4 in our second half of our game breakdown. Get to the game stats after that. Take a look at the ongoing action at the time of recording. And, of course, we preview the next week for the Buffalo Bills. You will also find out if you can get that game here on Sports for Beginners as a post-game show. Likely will be recorded the day after the ball game. Will you get a preseason edition of before they kick off? Not this season as far as the preseason is concerned, but maybe a preseason down the road. You will have, for those games that get scheduled around nighttime games, you will get a before they kick off. We will see. All right, Bills lose it 34-25 to the Giants. They lose the opener. How did it all go down? Stay tuned to find out. Bills Postgame continues on Sports for Beginners in just a few moments. Don't go anywhere. There's more great conversations and content right around the corner. Sports for Beginners will be right back in a moment.
Take another look with Gerda Felix and Melanie Taddeo Malo, two powerful women of diverse backgrounds having genuine, unique, and uncomfortable conversations that everyone needs to have. Join Melanie and Gerda for conversations about what is missing from human connections.
CNT Radio will never give you up. They will never let you down, nor will they run around or desert you. So join Nick Astley for The Melting Pot every Saturday on CNT Radio. Hang on a minute. He's not Nick Astley. Oh, jings, I've done it wrong. Anyway, just join Nick for The Melting Pot on CNT Radio.
Now, let's take you back to the action. To the rink and field we go. We find Scott McGregor.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back into Bills Postgame, Bills Giants Preseason Week 1. In case you missed it earlier, Giants fans, as we share the screen to bring up our scoreboard here and get you all settled in. I am Scott McGregor, your host of the program. Want to thank you so much for joining us on this program. We really appreciate you coming along. BillsMafia, a valiant effort by the Buffalo Bills in Week 1, but pre-snap penalties or whatever it was that was going on, and especially that big play right at the end of the game in Orchard Park that would have not tied the game, but at least gotten us a bit closer. Obviously, that didn't count because the knee was down short of the goal line. So the touchdown that we thought was going to happen was called back due to video review. It's a hard play to overturn. I was watching the ball game on a streaming platform from NFL Network for a little while, which was bringing us the action from the Buffalo Bills commentating area. Steve Tasker and Andrew Carlton on the call. Well, Steve and Andrew, I believe, were on the call. I'm not sure if the last name was Carlton, but Steve Tasker and Andrew were on the call. Maddie Glab, the team reporter. Shout out to Maddie. I told Maddie before the game yesterday, I told her on Instagram, I said, looking forward to the ball game, and I will be watching, and I was watching. Speaking of the ball game, we'll get into the scoreboard on the NFL Week 1 preseason, including the Hall of Fame game in just a matter of moments. But as we are on a shared screen, here's how it began. Here's how it all went down. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. First preseason game of the new year, the new season, rather. I'll even use my CBS app just in case to get us a little bit going here. Garnett Cano, a 53-yard field goal to get things going. He was pretty good. I like what I saw from Garnett Cano. He was pretty good. He gets a field goal to get things started. Graham Gano, not Garnett Gano. Graham Gano was the man. Pretty good things from him, a 53-yard field goal to start the scoring in the first quarter. That came at the 7-minute and 23-second mark of the game's first quarter. The Giants would start off the game out in front. Jackson Dart into the game in the second quarter. Of course, that first scoring play was courtesy of Russell Wilson setting it up. Jackson Dart with his first touchdown pass of the afternoon and the game, and I believe let alone his NFL career in the preseason. Complete to T. Sanders. The catch was made by Lil Jordan Humphrey making the grab, but a 28-yard touchdown. Graham Gano, extra point, up and good. Bills down 10-0 after the first quarter and now early second quarter. That coming in at a timeline of 11 minutes and 59 seconds in the second quarter. At the 8-minute and 37 mark, Mitch Trubinsky under center finds a way to connect with Dawson Knox for an 11-yard touchdown. And emergency field goal unit on the play. Emergency field goal unit. Ray Davis is going to kick the extra point. That is up and good. Here comes Buffalo. It's 10-7. Bills down a field goal. Later in the second quarter, Graham Gano, he made one from 53 earlier in the half, from 53 yards earlier in the half. This one is a 50-yard field goal. Up and in the books. 13-7 Giants on top of the Bills. They're on top by 6 with the Bills scoring a touchdown. And of course, after the touchdown pass by Jackson Dart to Lil Jordan Humphrey, I should say, that made it 10-0. Bills make it 10-7. Now it is a 13-7 game after the Graham Gano 50-yard field goal attempt. Speaking of whom, he gets another opportunity. He made one from 53 yards in the first quarter, and he will make one just before the half. This one from 51 yards. That attempt is up and in the books as the Giants go up by 9. They are up 16-7. Giants up by 9. 16-7. Giants out in front by 9. Despite the penalties happening. And I'm just going to quickly do some math here. 16-17. Yep, that is a 9-point lead for the Giants. That would ultimately be win differential for the Giants. They win the game by 9 points, but we'll double check that momentarily. The 9-point lead disappears when it becomes a 6-point lead at the half after you saw Ray Davis make a extra point early on. Guess what? Different Davis is going to make the play for the field goal to get the score with in reach at a 6-point game. That is Caden Davis. Caden Davis swapping out Ray Davis as emergency kickers for Tyler Bass, who is out with an injury. Well, actually, he's out with some soreness. Either way, I would say that's an injury. And he's made the only field goal of the game. The Bills, I keep saying Blue Jays, the Bills would get. It is a 24-yarder for Caden Davis that he makes, and at the half, it is the Bills 10 and the Giants 16. We're going to jump to the second half and go into our scoreboard game totals in just a moment. But before we take a break, time now for a shared screen and a look at the action so far in the preseason. Of course, of the final games, including our game, Bills losing 34-25 to open up an 8-game packed NFL schedule on Saturday, which is today, August 9th, 2025. Thursday, we had the Ravens defeat the Colts 24-16. Eagles also victors in their game, won 34-27 over the Bengals. Raiders and Seahawks, they tie up at 23-23 apiece. Lions and Falcons game had to be called, or rather suspended. It says final here, but it was actually suspended as Lions defensive back Maurice Norris Jr., who we know is in stable condition as the Lions have portrayed. They have made an announcement on that. He remained in the Atlanta hospital overnight that he was transferred to. He remained in the hospital in Atlanta that he got transported to, I should say, overnight for observation, according to the Lions statement. They would ultimately end up winning that game. At the time it was called suspended, which they had the lead at. They would win that game 17-10. Elsewhere in the Friday action, which was yesterday, the Browns pounding the Panthers by 20 points. Browns quarterback was unbelievable in his preseason debut. Browns knock off the Panthers 30-20. 30-10, I should say. Well, you want to talk about people making a debut statement? Patriots beat the Commanders 48 18 in their first preseason matchup. What a day for them, and what a day for the rookies at the Hall of Fame game. Lions also taking part in that game. They fell 34-7 to the Chargers on July 1st. That was on Hall of Fame week. Still lots more action to come in week 1 of the preseason. Right now, the Vikings leading their game 13-7. Double check here on my Discord app to see if that is still the correct score. That is indeed the correct score. They are at the half right now, and that is 13-7 Vikings. Coming up later on NFL Network, the Packers host the Jets. That's at 8 p.m. Coming up in about an hour from now, as we are just about an hour away from the 7 p.m. games. The Steelers are taking on the Jaguars. That game at 7 p.m. Eastern. Also at 7 p.m. Eastern, the Rams will host the Cowboys. 30 minutes after 7 p.m. Eastern, the Buccaneers will host the Titans. Coming up following Packers and Jets at 8 p.m. East, we will have the Cardinals and the Chiefs, as well as later at 8:30, the 49ers and the Broncos. The Bears of Chicago to kick off our Sunday action, and the Chargers taking on the Saints later at 4:05 p.m. Eastern. Still 2 weeks of preseason action to go. But right now, as we enter our second break of the program, we still have a half of a game to break down, plus game stats. All of that coming up next on Bills Postgame. Giants Nation. I know it's preseason, but we've said it already. We're going to say it again. Even though we are a Bills podcast, a Bills Postgame podcast, happy Victory Sunday to you. The Giants defeated the Bills 34-25. How did it get to that final score? Second half highlights. Game totals next when we return. And before we get to the break, a reminder that we are also going to do a Scoreboard check-in. That coming up as we close in on the closing moments of our show. To get to those closing moments, we got to get through the second half and get to the game totals. And that comes your way next. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere. There's more great conversations and content right around the corner. Sports for Beginners will be right back in a moment. Looking for a sports podcast that covers sports weekly as well as gets you set up for the day? Check out Weekly in Sports with me, Scott McGregor. We give some shout-outs of the week to podcasts like this one and those who do them. Discuss the Blue Jays, Bills, Raptors, and more. To learn more, check out the Sports for Beginners Facebook page. Search Sports for Beginners. Looking for a good hockey podcast that covers your favorite hockey teams and mine? Check out On the Ice and Behind the Benches, where we chat about our favorite hockey teams from puck drop to the last play of the action. To learn more, follow the On the Ice and Behind the Benches Facebook page. Search On the Ice and Behind the Benches.
Now, let's take you back to the action. To the rink and field we go. We find Scott McGregor.
One half of this Bills post-game show in the books. Reminder of a final score. Final score was Giants 34, Bills 25. I am your host, Scott McGregor. We've talked about it since the start of the program. For those Giants fans, should this drop on a Tuesday, even on a Monday, is what I meant to say. Happy Victory Sunday to you, Giants Nation. The G-Men take down the Bills 25 in the preseason opener, and one of the pretty much last games of the preseason at the current Highmark Stadium. Reminder, the Bills will be playing at the new Highmark Stadium just across the street from the old Highmark Stadium next year in 2026 during the 2026 season. So you can't get rid of the old Highmark Stadium that easily. It will still be the home of the Buffalo Bills for the 2025-2026 season. Coming up in basically, well, a couple of weeks, we're into preseason action. And yeah, it's only 3 weeks, and the season's longer. But hey, why not watch a little preseason action? Speaking of watching preseason action, let's keep it going here and make sure we get into our game totals, our totals. When we last left, we mentioned the Blue Jay. Scott, focus. The Bills, not the Blue Jays. The Bills were down at the half by 6 points, excuse me. It was 16-10. They were down 16-10, down by 6 points at the half. Caden Davis with the 24-yard, field goal to make it that score. The Bills did not have the ball in the first half. They won the toss, as I heard, but they deferred, so Russell Wilson and the Giants would get the ball first. Here we go, third quarter. Bills get the possession first as we jump into the second half of our game breakdown in the city of Orchard Park, New York, at the venue Highmark Stadium. At the 7-minute and 11-second mark, Mike White making a touchdown pass to KJ Hamler for a 39-yard touchdown. Caden Davis, extra point up and in the books. And for the first time in the ball game, it is the Bills out in front, but it's only a 1-point game, 17-16. The Bills have taken the lead. That lead would be short-lived as Jameson Winston, the new quarterback for the Giants, hits a short middle pass to G.O. I'm going to go with G.O. again for pronunciation issues. I may have an issue saying this name, but you know what? Let's give this a try and see if I can get it. Gunnar Olazinski. I'm going to go with Gunnar O. Sorry, Gunnar, if I couldn't get your last name, I should say, right. That's a 7-yard pass for a touchdown. Bills down 22-17. Giants go for two. Jameson Winston steps back, finds his man, Thomas Fidone, I should say, and the 2-point. I'm going to go with Thomas F. for the 2-point conversion. That makes it 24-17. Giants back ahead. It is 24-17. Giants back ahead by 7 after 3 quarters of play. Giants are ahead. Fourth quarter we go. Bills back on the ball. If the Giants could succeed on 2 points, so can we. Mike White finding Evans for a 7-yard touchdown. That would be it. I'm going to go with D. Evans. Sorry, Evans, if I pronounced your first name wrong. Apologies in advance. Deronton Evans. Okay, we'll go with D. Evans for the sake of pronunciation issues. Anyways, that keeps it at a 1-possession game, but Mike White goes for the 2 points. He steps back to pass and finds Laviska Shenault. I'm going to go with L. Shenault. Let's go with LS. If I pronounce the name wrong, I really apologize. 2-point conversion attempt succeeds from Mike White. It is 24-25. Giants over the Bills. 1-point lead. Next man to make a play, fourth quarter. This is on the Giants end. I'm going to go with Jude McKay in case I pronounced the name wrong. 42-yard field goal attempt. Up and good. Now the Bills trail by a safety. It is 27-25. But don't tell Tommy DeVito that. He finds Jonathan Ward for an 8-yard touchdown to make it 33-25. Extra point by the kicker, Jude McKay, up and good, and it's 34-25, which would ultimately end up being the final score of this ball game. All right, time now for your game totals. I won't share the screen for this part, but I will bring it up for you here. Player of the game, known this season as Game Balls of the Game, coming up in mere moments, and around that time, we will be closing out our show. And as I said before we close out the show, we will be doing a CFL scoreboard update. So that coming up after our next break. But to get to that break, let's get through our game totals. I have apps open just in case some of the stats are different. We'll begin with the total yards, which include passing and rushing yards. How did the teams fare? Well, let's start on the Giants side. They had 317 passing yards, 79 rushing yards on 76 total plays. They averaged 5.2 yards per play. We're pretty good on third down at 47%, going 9 of 19. The Bills 1 of 9 on third down, more with the Bills in just a few moments. 10 penalties to the New York Giants. They also had 70 penalty yards because of that. The Bills only had 4 penalties, which penalized them 25 yards. 1 turnover by the Buffalo Bills. That was a fumble in which the Bills lost. 51 tackles for the Giants in this game, 2 quarterback sacks included. They did not lose any yards because the Bills were not able to sack any of the quarterbacks for the Giants. The Giants end the game with a time of possession of 36 minutes and 19 seconds. The Bills with a time of possession at 23 minutes and 41 seconds. Total yardage of the Giants for this game, 396 yards. The Bills, on account of 341 passing yards, 58 rushing yards, at a total yardage of 388 and 89 yards, 389 yards, on 55 total plays, averaging 7.1 yards per play. They had 20 first downs, 1 less than the Giants did. The Giants had 21 first downs in this game. The Bills 1 for 9 on third down. They were not good in that category. They were also, I guess you could call that good. They were 1 for 2 on fourth down. The Giants connected twice on fourth down efficiency. They go 2 for 2. Well, actually, it's a little far-fetched with passing yards with the Bills in 31 yards, not 341 yards. 331 yards, actually, according to the Score app I have on my phone. But the total yards, still the same. Also, the Bills lost 10 yards on sacks, as they gave up 2 sacks in this ball game. But they were the better team defensively. 62 tackles in this ball game. And no interceptions thrown by either squad. The Bills had 6 punts returned for 53 yards. The Giants 4 punt returns, 45. And yeah, pretty much that's it. I mean, I could go over kicking yards, but we'd probably be here all day. That is your totals for this game. When we come back after this commercial break, what is going on in the CFL is their current week in their season wrapping up? And if so, who's still to come on Saturday? Plus, speaking of still to come, who's coming up next in the preseason schedule for the Buffalo Bills and the New York Giants? Our CFL scoreboard, and who's next for the Giants? Who's next for Buffalo? It all comes your way when we wrap up Bills postgame on the other side. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere. There's more great conversations and content right around the corner. Sports for Beginners will be right back in a moment.
Looking for conversations on the world of broadcasting, sports media, and from time to time, my favorite sports teams? Listen to Broadcast Map with me, Ali Musa. To learn more about the show and to view the upcoming schedule, like the Broadcast Map Facebook page. Search Broadcast Map. Now, let's take you back to the action. To the rink and field we go. We find Scott McGregor.
Alrighty, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Bills Postgame. My name is Scott McGregor. Final segment and the first preseason game of the new season. But Scott, it's preseason. Who cares if the Bills lose a preseason game? I'll tell you, if you're a die-hard fan, you always care whether the Bills lose a preseason game or they win a preseason game, which you're happy about. Well, we lost this one, but it was very close. It was very close. Once again, our final score, in case you have missed it over the course of the program, Bills 25, Giants 34. What's up, Tep? What's on tap for them? Coming up, I should say, in just a few moments from now. Players of the game will not require a shared screen. They are known as what I like to call our player of the game segment this year, game balls of the ball game. And for the preseason and of course the regular season, this will take effect in the regular season as well, this coming season. Well, we will be giving out 2 game balls each to a player on each team, the Buffalo Bills and their opponents. As we all know, our final score is 34-25, Giants over the Buffalo Bills. We will touch on who they will be playing next in a matter of moments. And of course, we will touch on the CFL scoreboard before we get to that point. But to get there, I want to remind you just before we jump into the game balls of the game, known this season as our player of the game segment, I want to let our fans know, especially Bills fans know for this show, that whether or not the Bills win or they lose, even in the preseason, I will be playing the fight song, the shout song. You won't hear it on this preseason show, but in future preseason shows, whether or not we cover all 3 this year, and definitely after regular season games, whether they win or they lose, the Bills win or they lose, you will be hearing that shout fight song over the course of the season. So let's jump to game balls. And I want to remind you also that we do have one current football game going on among a packed Saturday schedule. And then, of course, we still have Dolphins, Bears, Chargers, Saints on Sunday. You're probably listening to this show on Sunday ahead of those games or as those games are going on. But the games coming up on Saturday action include the Jaguars, Steelers, Rams, Cowboys, Broncos, Niners, Packers, Jets, Titans, Buccaneers, Rams, Cowboys, as I said, and of course, Chiefs and Cardinals. Ongoing right now, still in a score of 13-10. The Vikings are leading the Texans. All right, enough gab. Let's get to it. So the first game balls of the game are going to go out to the victorious Giants. In case you have missed it over the course of the episode, to all of Giants Nation, regardless of it being preseason, happy Victory Sunday to you, or whenever you are tuning into this. You might be tuning into this on a Monday, or whenever. Regardless, congratulations on the victory against the Buffalo Bills. First up, we gotta show some promise to guys like Jackson Dart and Russell Wilson. But the first game ball for the victorious New York Giants is going to go to their rookie draft pick quarterback, Jackson Dart. 12 of 19 in completion attempts, passing for 154 yards, averaging 8.1 yards per pass, 1 touchdown, no sacks given up, no picks thrown, which is another word for interceptions. Next up, we're going to the ground game. And how about that ground game from this guy Miller, Dante Miller? Dude was electric. Yeah, okay, he didn't have very long yards. His longest yardage was 10 yards. But the dude, I feel, deserves some flowers because I feel like he was playing pretty well. I liked what I saw from him, despite the Bills being able to only get him averaging 2.2 yards per carry in 10 carries for 22 yards. You know what? Why not? I said we were going to do 2 to a side, but why not do 3 to a side? Coming in at number 3 at game balls of the game, why not do a number 3rd for the victorious Giants? Why not? Devin Motor Singletary in the action. 3 yards, his longest run in 2 carries, averaging 1.5 yards per carry. 3 yards in 2 carries that he had. Okay, it wasn't his best game. It wasn't his best game. It wasn't Devin Motor Singletary's best game. On the ground, that is. He also was targeted once, but didn't make a catch. Let's go to Buffalo. Watching Shane Buechele was great. I liked how he was able to get 10 completions out of 12 attempts. But we're going to give our first game ball to Mitch Trubinsky. Yeah, he didn't have too many completions. He had 9 completions on 13 attempts. But he still managed to get some great yardage. 138 yards passing, averaging 10.6 yards per pass, 1 touchdown. Mike White with 2 touchdowns to account for the 3 touchdowns in the air. No touchdowns on the ground. But speaking of going on the ground, we go to our second game ball of the game, which belongs to running back / kicker in Ray Davis. 1.8 yards per carry, 4 attempts rushing, 7 yards. 4 yards was his longest rush. That's okay. Not quite your day, but that's okay. I thought you were pretty good. I should also mention in the preseason, Ray Davis, 1 for 1 in extra point attempts. And speaking of extra point attempts, as well as, I guess you could say, field goal attempts, Caden Davis, 1 for 1 there as well. Perfect on his 24-yard field goal attempt. So, our game balls out of Buffalo, Ray and Caden Davis, both on the ground and kicking wise. From the air, we go to quarterback Mitchell Trubinsky, one of the great guys that actually was really showing out there for me. For the New York Giants, Devin Motor Singletary, Jackson Dart for the Giants are the game balls of the game. And of course, for the Bills, the game balls of the game are going to go to Mitch Trubinsky and Ray and Caden Davis. But I also mentioned Tre'Davious White early on in the program. Trey White, he was looking pretty good. Now, I have not seen Hard Knocks, but thankfully, thanks to our host of On the Ice and Behind the Benches, Thomas McGregor, I'm able to catch all the action, even if I don't watch Hard Knocks, because I don't have HBO, which is what the series is about, I'm able to catch all the tea from the official host of the program, Andrew Siliciano, on the Hard Knocks podcast. Andrew, you did a wonderful job on that show. I know there's a lot of other episodes other than the ones surrounding the Buffalo Bills, but I am a Bills fan, so maybe I'll take a look at the other Hard Knocks episodes in the podcast later on. But for this year and for this season, I will see what I can get to. I have listened to episode 1 of the podcast, let alone the recap also of episode 1 of Hard Knocks. Really good show, I must say, and what a way to open up with a guest. That's right, Bills fans, in case you haven't heard it yet, I don't really want to spoil it, but the one, the only, Mr. Beard, as I would like to call him. You know him, you love him, BillsMafia. Well, okay, that depends on who I ask. But anyways, that's besides the point. Ryan Fitzpatrick was on the show for Hard Knocks. All right, speaking of knocking, or rather, Hard Knocks, Game 1 of the preseason is in the books. Coming up in just a few minutes, we will talk about who's next for the Giants and who's next for the Bills, but I promised you a CFL check-in, and that's exactly what we're going to do. In case you were hearing it on Blue Jays game recap, odds are you probably were. Well, Week 10 is almost in the books. They have one more game coming up in just a few moments from now. That will be the Winnipeg Blue Bombers against the Calgary Stampeders. Earlier in the week, as it was a Thursday to Saturday week in Week 10 of the CFL, the Montreal Alouettes lost to the Edmonton Elks, or the Elks, rather, as they are called, 23-22. The Tiger Cats, well, that was a interesting ball game, but they fall 41-38 on Thursday, August 7th. The Alouettes taking the L against the Elks on Friday, the 8th of August. And already final in today's action as of the recording of this podcast, the Argonauts fall 46-2 to the Ottawa Redblacks. That is the Toronto Argonauts against the Ottawa Redblacks. Final score once again, 46-42, Redblacks over the Argos. Blue Bombers and Stampeders coming up in a couple of moments' time. Game time is 7 p.m. Eastern. That ought to be a good game between the Stampeders and the Blue Bombers. And with that brings us to the conclusion of this Bills Preseason Postgame show. All the Bills preseason action can only be heard on the ice, I should say on Sports for Beginners. Regular season action will be heard on both on the ice and behind the benches, and of course, Sports for Beginners, the podcast. That goes for Dolphins postgame as well for the regular season. The preseason, that's going to be a skip for this year, but who knows? Maybe next season we'll get a preseason couple of shows from Miami. Speaking of Miami, in case you have missed it over the course of the episode, the Dolphins take on the Bears this Sunday. Coverage starting with game time at 1 p.m. Eastern. Following that game, and both of those games, by the way, on NFL Network. Following that game at 4:05 p.m. Eastern, it is the Chargers hosting the Saints. Won't those games be good? And speaking of games on NFL Network, the last game of a triple header on NFL Network is at 8 p.m. Eastern. That is the Green Bay Packers and the New York Jets. The second game of the triple header is underway right now, and that game is a 20-10 Vikings lead on the Houston Texans. So the Vikings are really bringing the heat to the Texans, even though it's the preseason. Still, we got Jaguars, Steelers, Rams, Cowboys, Chiefs, Cardinals, Buccaneers, Titans, Broncos, 49ers, and of course, as I mentioned earlier, Jets and Green Bay. Those games should be really good. Preseason week 2, well, we're about to get to that for the Giants and for the Bills. Hey, speaking of the Jets, guess what? Giants Nation. That's who's got next in the G-Man calendar for the preseason. Game time at 7 p.m. Eastern. Game time also for their final game, which will be on a Thursday, is at 8 p.m. Eastern. That is against the New England Patriots on Thursday, August 21st, 2025. Next week, they will take on the Jets on August 16th. Game time 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Pacific. For the Buffalo Bills, late night games of their own coming up in the preseason. They will take on the Bears on Fox on Sunday. That is Sunday night next week. From where are we playing? Where are we playing for this preseason matchup? This preseason matchup will take place at Soldier Field. You can watch it on Fox, or of course, if you're in the Buffalo area, you could listen to it on WGR 550. And of course, anywhere you could find the game for the Buffalo Bills in the Buffalo area, even in the Erie County. All right, so the Bills and the Bears, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, 5 Pacific, 6 Mountain on Sunday night next week. They will wrap it up the following Saturday on the 23rd as the Buffalo Bills go head to head in the final tune-up game before the regular season against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now this just in, ladies and gentlemen, due to scheduling and of course our commitment to talking Blue Jays even on Blue Jays Weekly Recap, which we just started. We will not cover the Bears game next week. That is on Fox. But we will try to salvage the upcoming Saturday game on the 23rd between the Buccaneers and the Bills. We will see when we can get that recorded. It will likely drop on Monday ahead of that series for the Blue Jays when they will take on the Minnesota Twins, and may likely be recorded on the Sunday after the ball game on Saturday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. 4:30 p.m. Pacific. To make sure I said that right, the 4:30 p.m. Pacific is when that game will take place. No Bills postgame following the Bears and the Bills game, which is an 8 p.m. Eastern start, 7 p.m. Central, p.m. Pacific, p.m. Mountain start time. But perhaps, I say perhaps, even with the Blue Jays going on the road, perhaps you could get that recap before our special celebration episode the Monday after that game. For now, that is it for this one. Enjoy the rest of the preseason action for all you football fans out there. Bills Mafia, get some rest. Enjoy the rest of your week. We got another game next week. For sure, you will catch me next time following Buccaneers and Bills. But can we salvage week 2 of the preseason? We will see. The Bills are off to Soldier Field for preseason week 2. The Giants, meanwhile, prepare to host the Jets at MetLife Stadium next week. By the way, that game against the Buccaneers is also a road game. Thank you so much for being with us. If you love baseball and are looking for night owl action, Thomas has you covered here on this podcast as well as on the ice and behind the benches. And speaking of that, we're about an hour, 35 minutes away from Blue Jays Central on Sportsnet. Enjoy the baseball game, everybody. As I said, for football fans, enjoy the rest of the football action. And I will see you all after Bucks and Bills. Speaking of the Bills, go Bills! And I look forward to catch up with you again real soon, Bills Mafia. The Bills lose it, 34-25. Can they bounce back against the Bears? Find out next week. We'll see you. Thank you so much for listening to Sports for Beginners. If you would like to learn more about the show, you can visit the podcast Facebook page or visit the official website. You can also send us an email at sportsforbeginnerspodcast8231@gmail.com. As we always remind you, it is not goodbye, it is until next time.